Right. Let us start. So unemployment. Basically, in this particular topic, you need to learn the following concepts because this will be the majority of your exam bank exercises. So first of all, definitions and formulas for labor force, participation rate, unemployment, and employment rate. Right? You need to understand what is the difference between total population and what is labor force, because they will appear in formulas. Next, you will need to understand who is the part of labor force and who isn't. So again, it's a definition of labor force. Very importantly, very important part of the exam will be different types of unemployment. So what factors cause unemployment? So you will need to understand what are the different types. For example, frictional, structural, seasonal, natural, Keynesian, demand deficient, cyclical, all of these terms, you need to understand what they mean. So what are the factors which cause these types of unemployment? What are the reasons for it? And also you need to understand what government can do to address these types of unemployment, because they are handled differently. They occur for various reasons, and we can eliminate them or reduce these types of unemployment by using different techniques. So you need to understand this. And of course, you need to practice calculating various ratios, various formulas, because you will be asked to do this, and it's not actually difficult, so you can confirm that. It's just a few formulas which you'll need to memorize. Strictly speaking, I would say that this topic is simple, so it would be really a pity if you lose marks on this topic. So let's have a look at the first example. So we are given certain numbers. So let me just switch to this. We know that we have certain number of employed people. So let me just write it slightly differently so it will become easier to use. So this is our employment figure. We have 27 million of people who are working. We have 1.5 million of people who are not working, so unemployment, number of unemployed people. And we are also told that there is 17 million who are not in labor force. Not in labor force, so 17 million. 136 and zeros. Based on this, we'll need to calculate labor force. Labor force is simply a sum of people who are employed and unemployed. So labor force is part of the society who is economically active, right? And it will include a variety of people. So let's have a look at question 2. It asks you about what exactly labor force is. So labor force will include people of working age who are not children, so they are above 16 years old, who are not old, so they are not above retirement age. So these are people of working age between 16 and 65. They are prepared to work, they are willing to work, they are actively looking for work, right? So these are people who want to be economically active, and they can be working or not working. It depends. If they've managed to find a work, they will be employed. If they haven't, they will be unemployed. But these are our economically active people, economically active part of the population. So if you look at exercise 2, for example, it will basically, the correct answer will be D. These are not non-institutionalized individuals over the age of 16 who are working or looking for work. What does it mean non-institutionalized? It means that you are not in prison, you are not in army, you are not a marine, you are not a student. So basically these parts of population will not count toward labor force. They will not be included in the labor force. So it's not all individuals over the age of 16, not all, right? Because if you're a student, you are not economically active if you are part of, if you are in full-time education. Non-institutionalized individuals over the age of 16 would include pensioners as well, and pensioners are not part of labor force. Who are working, not necessarily, because again, would exclude people who are unemployed. So labor force is economically active population of working age, not students, not pensioners, not children, not prisoners, not soldiers, and so on, who are willing to work, prepared to work, and might be looking for work or available to work immediately. So here the correct answer would be B. And based on this idea, we can calculate labor force in our society. It will consist of a sum of employed and unemployed people. So if we add up 27.5 million and 1.5 million, we will get total labor force, which will be how much? 29,115,000. This is our labor force, 29 million. Next, what is labor force participation rate? Participation rate is calculated as a ratio of labor force by total population. So simply speaking, it tells us what percentage of our population is active, is prepared to work, is able, capable of working. So in order to calculate this, we have labor force already. We need to calculate total population size. And to do this, we simply add up labor force and those who are not in labor force, which will give us total population in our country. So we know that 29 are economically active, 29 million, and 17 million are not, which means that the sum of these two figures will be equal to 46,251,000, right? So basically this is our total population, so it is 46 million. Labor force is only 29. So if we calculate the ratio, if we divide one by another, we will get our labor force participation rate. So what percentage of population participates in labor force, which will be equal to approximately 63%. Right? Next, what is unemployment rate? The most important formula for today would be unemployment is simply, in percentage terms, unemployment rate is simply a number of unemployed divided by labor force. So labor force, that's the most important thing. We divide it by labor force, not by total population. So this is the most important formula, and this is where students still unfortunately make mistakes. So what is our number of unemployed? 1.5 million. 546. That's our unemployment, number of unemployed. What is our labor force? 29 million. So pay attention, we divide by 29, not by 46 million. And as a result, of course, in percentages and percentage terms, multiply by 100%, this will be equal to 5.3%. So most importantly, we divide by labor force, not population. That's it. Got the idea? Right? So three formulas basically which you'll need to remember. It's labor force, participation rate, which is labor force by total population, and unemployment rate, which is unemployment by labor force. And of course, you do this in percentages. That's all. So these are simple formulas which you'll need to use. And similarly, employment rate would be calculated as number of employed divided by labor force. Okay, are we ever likely to get an unemployment level of 0? No, we are not, and I can actually show you the full solution here, the full answer. There was a separate part on this in the lecture. No, it's impossible to have a 0 unemployment rate in a free market economy because some types of unemployment are inevitable. It's impossible to ensure that everyone is working every single day. For example, there will be seasonal unemployment, which is unavoidable. For example, if you live in a tourist area where there are lots of tourists, maybe you work in hospitality area or in a restaurant, apparently in your business you will be extremely busy over summer when there are lots of tourists, when it's high season, when it's peak time. But in winter, maybe it will be very quiet and you might even lose your job. It's unavoidable. There is nothing wrong about this and there is nothing you can do about this. You cannot force tourists to come in winter just to ensure that you remain in work, in employment. This is seasonal unemployment. Or structural unemployment, which is unavoidable too because structure of the economy changes over time. If you used to be a miner in 18th century, now you are much more likely to work in services industry or in IT or be a hairdresser or a taxi driver. These jobs did not exist back then, but previous jobs which were available in 18th, 19th centuries do not exist now because we don't need these services anymore. We don't produce these goods which were popular back then. There is nothing wrong again with that, so you will simply need time to readjust. If your service, if your work, if your services, if your product or skills become obsolete, you will need to retrain and to find yourself again in the labor market. And there might be some time required for this. Or you might need to relocate to another area where there are jobs, where there is demand for people with your skills. And again, there might be some time which will be required for you to make this decision. And during this time, you will remain unemployed. There is nothing wrong with this. So basically, because of this, because there are some types of unavoidable unemployment, there will be always some unemployment in a free market economy, even if it operates perfectly. And this is what we call natural unemployment rate. So strictly speaking, if we produce at our full capacity, if we produce in our country, total output is equivalent to our full production potential, there will still be some people who are unemployed. And this is what we call natural unemployment rate. So generally, that's okay. There is it's not possible to achieve zero unemployment in reality unless you are a country like North Korea, where you totally control all aspects of your citizens' life. So you can force them to work. So if someone is not needed in their job, for example, they used to be a taxi driver, and now you are a communist party, and you decide that it's not necessary to have taxi drivers anymore, and you force this person to work in the farm, for example. You can force them to do this because they don't have a free will, they don't have any freedoms of they don't have any personal desires. They're just forced to do whatever they're told. And unless you're a country like this, and there is only one country in the world like that, North Korea, if you are in a free market economy, it's not possible to achieve zero unemployment. So it's not achievable in reality, and even in theory, it would be difficult to do. Okay, any questions based on that? No? Okay, next exercise 2, we've done exercise 2. Okay, individuals are counted as unemployed if they satisfy certain criteria. So what criteria you need to satisfy? Criteria. So first of all, you need to be a part of labor force, i.e. you need to be of working age, not a student, not a pensioner, not a prisoner, right? Or a part of labor force. Next, you must be prepared to work. Literally, you must be available to start work on Monday if there is a job available for you. If you just think that, oh, I don't want to work now, maybe next year, maybe when I finish this game, maybe I will then be able to do this. I'm too busy now, or I'm too tired now, I need a bit of rest. Maybe from the new year, you're not prepared to work. You will not be counted as unemployed if you're not prepared to start work immediately. So you must be prepared to work. And what is importantly, you must be prepared to accept the going wage rate. It's not like, oh, if I was paid £200 per hour, then I would work. But for £10, no, I cannot be bothered. You must be prepared to work for the going wage rate per person with your skills. It's next criteria. And another very important criteria, you must be actively searching for a job. Actively searching for a job. If you're sitting at home thinking, oh, I wouldn't mind getting a job, I wouldn't mind to be paid, I'm actually okay with that, but I don't do anything to find this job. I don't send CVs, I don't attend any interviews, I'm not checking various portals with job announcements. If I'm not doing this, if I'm not actively looking, I'm not unemployed. I'm just not making an effort to find a job. So you need to satisfy these criteria. And now let's have a look what options actually satisfy this set of criteria. No job, it's not enough. No job and not looking, definitely not suitable. You must be looking for a job. No job but actively looking, yes, this seems suitable. Let's check other options. No job but looked for a job at least once in the last year. Again, that's not enough because you're not actively looking for a job. Prefer to live on benefits, you are not part of labor force in this case, if you prefer to live on benefits. If it's a lifestyle choice, you have make a decision that you are not actively looking, you are not prepared to work, you are fine with living on benefits, and that's it, you are not unemployed then. So the only set of criteria which would satisfy our set, the only option would be answer C, and that is why C is the correct answer. Not difficult, as long as you understand the concept. Okay, next, the labor force participation rate. This is what we've calculated already. Participation rate is simply a ratio of labor force to total population, expressed as percentages. So let's have a look. Percent of population above the age of 16? No, because not all people above the age of 16 would be part of labor force. Ratio of the number in the labor force to the population, ratio of the number in the labor force to population. Yes, this seems correct. Ratio of the number employed to the population of working age. Not exactly, because labor force also includes unemployed people. Labor force includes unemployed as well. That's why this option C wouldn't be correct. We can eliminate this. Next, civilian labor force divided by the total labor force. No, has nothing to do with this, and we are left with the only correct option, which is B. So B would be the correct answer. Okay? Right? Let's have a look at the next set of questions. Let me just copy-paste them. Okay, let's have a look. Question 5. As more women entered the labor force, the result was that. So generally, more women decide to start working. Obviously, it's not a secret that many women are responsible for looking after their families, and many women just rely on husband's income because they do other jobs at home. So they raise children, they look after the household, and so on. And previously, in 18th, 19th century, women didn't work. It was not expected because they had plenty of work at home, inside the house, right? But obviously, in this century, in 20th century, many women decided to get a career, get educated, and start working. They entered the labor force. The result was that, let's have a look at different options. Labor force participation rates for females increased. Yes, this seems obvious because now higher percentage of females are actively prepared, looking for a job, and they're prepared to work. So participation rate among females in the labor force has increased. Labor force participation rate for females decreased. No, this is totally the opposite. Now more women are prepared to work. They participate more in labor force and the production activities. Unemployment rate declined, not necessarily because as women entered the labor force, as they decided that they want to work, it does not necessarily mean that they were able to find a job, right? Moreover, our unemployment rate in percentages depends on number of unemployed plus labor force, and labor force now has increased, right? So unemployment rate can drop in theory, but it depends on how number of unemployed people was affected, and we are not sure what happened to the number of unemployed. We don't know if these women got a job. They've decided that they want to work, but we don't know what happened to the numerator of this ratio. So we are not sure, and we can eliminate this. We cannot guarantee this outcome. Labor force declined? No, it actually increased. So now we have more people who are prepared to work, so it should increase. And as a result, we are left with option A, and this is our correct answer. Next. Now we move to different definitions of different types of unemployment. So in lecture slides, there are very many different types which I've described in detail. So please make sure that you review these video lessons just to ensure that you understand every single type of unemployment, because there might be questions asking about each of them. So let's have a look at this one. Workers temporarily unemployed but who normally find jobs quickly are called. This is what we call frictional unemployment, or in between jobs, or job search unemployment. Job search unemployment. The idea is that information about available vacancies in the real world is not perfect. So there might be some vacancies for a person with your skills, your qualifications, which would offer you the wage which you would accept. So generally, there is a match between you, the person who looks for a job, and the vacancies available. But you simply don't know about each other. You simply haven't found this vacancy yet. You need some time to go through all job portals, to apply for these jobs, to send your CVs, to be invited for an interview, for the company to make a decision, and so on. There will be some time. It takes time. This process takes time. And as a result, if you remain temporarily unemployed during this process, you are called frictionally unemployed. This is frictional or job search unemployment. You will be able to find a job. It's not a problem. Jobs exist for you. It's just time is required for this, to find this job, to match workers and vacancies. This is what we call frictional unemployment. It's just a definition of frictional unemployment. It's not cyclical unemployment, because cyclical unemployment is unemployment which existed due to the stage of the business cycle. In recessions, when output is low, when our economy is in decline, when we produce less than normal, than our production potential, when many businesses go bankrupt, it implies that many people lose jobs and they become unemployed simply because we're in recession. This is what is called cyclical unemployment, caused by recessionary stage of the business cycle. Seasonal unemployment, again, it's very obvious, I've explained it already. It's unemployment which exists during particular times of the year. So it's not that. Structural unemployment, again, we've covered this already. It's a situation, it's unemployment which occurs due to structural changes in the economy, due to increasing or reducing demand for people with particular skills. Because unemployment depends on demand for labor, And demand for labor depends on demand for products. If particular products, particular goods and services are not in demand by customers, there will be no demand for workers in this particular industry. And this is what we call structural unemployment. It's impossible to avoid these changes in pattern of consumer demand. There is nothing wrong with it, and that's why structural unemployment will always exist. But it's not about what we are answering in this particular question. So temporarily unemployed people who normally find jobs quickly are frictionally unemployed. Next exercise. Workers who are unemployed because they lack the skills needed by employees are called structurally unemployed now. And again, we go through the same process of elimination. They're not frictionally unemployed because it's not about finding a job. It's because you don't have skills which are needed. So there is no job for people with your skills at the moment. So it's not about just finding the job which exists. It's about getting the skills, and you don't have these skills yet. Your skills, current skills, are not in demand. No one needs you in your current with your current abilities, with your current qualifications. You are like falling short compared to the demand for specific skills. You simply don't have them. It's not cyclical unemployment because the economy can be booming, but you cannot still find a job because you don't have necessary qualifications and skills. And it's not seasonal unemployment because it doesn't depend on the time of the year. So it's structural unemployment. Lack of skills. So it's a mismatch between demand for skills and skills available in workers at the moment. And question 8, which of the following occupations would least likely to be subjected to seasonal unemployment? In other words, we will need to find a person who can work at all times of the year, in winter, in summer, in spring, so in all seasons. So the person will be less subject to these seasonal fluctuations in demand if his job is not seasonal, if he can work, if his skills are in demand during the whole year. So let's have a look. Lifeguard, probably more in demand in summer. So we'll be vulnerable to this seasonal unemployment because no one is swimming in winter, it's too cold, and as a result there will be no lifeguards on beaches. So no, it's not lifeguards. Department store Santa, apparently not, because probably they are employed for maybe a couple of weeks per year, and that's it. They will be, obviously, the only thing which you can do is to be a Santa, then apparently you will be unemployed for most of the year. Ronald McDonald Clown, yes, because usually these are employed by parents who want to entertain their children for their birthday parties, for other parties, and so on, just to entertain kids. And kids require entertainment throughout the whole year. So it's not limited to their birthdays. And moreover, children will have birthdays throughout the year, if we consider the nation overall. So C would be the correct answer. And Easter Bunny is the same problem as Santa Claus, because they only have jobs in a particular time of the year, maybe 1 or 2 weeks per year only around Easter. So these are some questions which can be asked based on these different types of unemployment. Again, if you understand the meaning of each type, you should have no problems with that at all. So it's rather simple. Let me proceed to the rest of the exercises. Let's have a look at the next set of questions. Questions 9 to 12. So you just literally need to ensure that you see the lectures. You review the lecture notes, and then you will be fine for this topic. So, question 9. Which of the following occupations would most likely to be subject to seasonal unemployment? Car mechanic? No, because cars break down throughout the whole year, so their skills will be in demand for the whole year. Not A. Appliance salesperson? Again, appliances are sold throughout the whole year. People need their microwaves, fridges, and so on throughout the whole year. It's not linked to a particular time of the year. Television repair person, same issue, and we are only left with the farm worker who looks like a correct suspect. Yes, farm workers will be very vulnerable to seasonal unemployment because they will be highly in demand in a particular time of the year. And farms will be hiring lots of additional workers when they need to pick their strawberries or apples or something, but these people will work only temporarily again for maybe 1 or 2 months per year. Farm worker most likely to be subject to seasonal unemployment. Question 10. Natural unemployment is considered as being equal to the level that combines all of the following except. So we are checking what type of unemployment will not be included in the natural rate. And here, let's just recall what natural rate means. Natural unemployment rate will include three types: seasonal, frictional, and structural unemployment. So a sum of these three types of unemployment will be equal to the natural unemployment rate. Usually for majority industrial countries, it's about 5 to 6%. In the UK, in America, it's about 5 to 6%. This is our normal unemployment rate. In Germany, it's likely to be lower. In France, it's likely to be higher, maybe 8 to 10% roughly. It's natural for them. It depends on labor market institutions. So this is what will be included, and all other types of unemployment are avoidable. They're bad for the economy, and they will be tackled somehow. They should be tackled. So let's have a look what is occurring here. Structural is a part of natural, seasonal is a part, cyclical is not part of natural unemployment rate, and frictional is. So we need to find what type of unemployment is not occurring here, which is cyclical unemployment. That's why the correct answer will be B. Next, which of these is likely to increase in the more severe recessions? In the more severe recessions, obviously there will be cyclical unemployment because it's linked to the stage of the business cycle. And the stronger, the more severe the recession is, the higher this type of unemployment will be, because very severe recession implies that we are very far away from our normal production level. So if you imagine that this is our trend line, so long-term trend, GDP trend, this is a timeline, and this is GDP, the actual GDP will fluctuate around this trend, and severe recession will be somewhere here, when there is a significant gap between what we could produce, what we do produce normally, and the point where we are at the moment. So let's think maybe March, April 2020, where most of the country was locked down, where most businesses were closed and not working, most shops were closed, most people were sent home, and no one was working. And our GDP actually in this quarter dropped by about 30%, by about a third. We were not working, we were not producing anything. And obviously, during this period, many people lost their jobs. Unemployment was the highest. This is because of the stage of the business cycle. Yes, this type of recession was somehow artificial. It's not caused by the natural cycles in the economy. It was caused by the pandemic, but basically this recession implied that we were producing below our normal production potential, and cyclical unemployment was the highest. So generally, the most likely to increase is the cyclical unemployment. Frictional, seasonal, and structural unemployment, they generally are not related to the stage of the business cycle. For example, it has nothing to do with seasons. This year, this recession happened to be in spring. This is because the pandemic hit in spring. If it hit more in winter, we would have this high cyclical unemployment in winter. It's not really related to the seasons. And it's not related to job search process. It's not related to changes in consumer demand. It depends on the stage of the business cycle. So in recession, it will be cyclical unemployment. The correct answer would be D. Question 12. When workers are overqualified for their current job or can only find work part-time, we refer this to being underemployed. So they can get a job, but it's not exactly, there is no demand for their skills, or not sufficient demand for their skills. So they might find something, but it's not exactly, there is not exact match between their skills and demand for their skills at the moment. They're not unemployed because they can still find part-time work. So strictly speaking, they're not unemployed. They're not discouraged workers because they're still searching for a work. A discouraged worker is someone who tried to find a job, really struggled. Maybe he was sending 10 CVs every single week and was constantly rejected, and he tried for the whole year, and then he gave up. And he said, okay, I will live off benefits. I can't do this anymore. I cannot take all these rejections all the time. And I will live on benefits for the rest of my life. These are what we call discouraged workers. They just give up and they leave labor force because they stop actively looking for a job. They're not. So not in labor force, no, because they are employed at the moment. They are doing something, they have a job or can find part-time work, so they are part of labor force, they're economically active. So we are left with underemployed as the only correct option. Okay, any questions based on that? Okay, 13. Which of the following government policy measures is likely to reduce frictional unemployment? Remember, frictional is the job search unemployment. or in between jobs unemployment, which is caused by the information imperfection, because workers don't have access to perfect information about available vacancies, and similarly companies, employers don't know which workers exist in labor market and who is searching for a job. And there is some mismatch between these imperfection and information flows. So obviously to reduce this unemployment type, we'll need to improve information, information to both workers and companies. So let's have a look what could work here. More efficient and better informed job centers. Yes, this seems right. The more information job centers will have about available vacancies, if they will have a database of workers, they will be able to match them to jobs available. Increased government spending in the regions, not necessarily. If you spend more in regions, this will reduce regional unemployment or structural unemployment, but it will not help workers to find jobs quicker. So it's not about that. Reduction in income taxes. Well, if you reduce income taxes, it will affect disposable income, consumption levels, it will affect GDP, it might reduce overall unemployment rate in the society gradually over time by a little bit, but it will not reduce this particular type of unemployment. High unemployment benefits will do the opposite, because the more generous benefits are, the less incentive workers have to go and actively look for a job. Because if you're paid to do nothing and sit at home, what motivation do you have to go and get out and actually start working? Not at all, especially if you're a low-skilled worker and if you don't have many chances of earning considerably more than what you are paid now. There is no incentive for you. So generally, the higher the unemployment benefits, the higher unemployment rate will be, especially among low-skilled workers. For example, if I'm a high-class specialist, if I'm a highly skilled person, I will be paid maybe, I don't know, 50 to 100,000 pounds if I work, but I will only be paid 10,000 if I sit at home and receive benefits. Obviously, it's not really good for me, it's not enough for me, so I have high ambitions. I will prefer to go and get this job because I will be paid substantially more. But if you can only potentially earn maybe 12,000 by working and 10,000 by doing nothing, then obviously you don't have that much incentive to choose and go out and work for 8 hours every day for sake of just a few extra pounds per day. No point, right? So generally, more efficient and better informed job centers will help to address frictional unemployment, but not other types. Okay, question 14. Number of people classified as unemployed is 20,000. Number of people classified as employed is 230,000. What is unemployment rate? As before, unemployment is the ratio of number of unemployed divided by labor force times 100%. So we need to calculate labor force first, which is a sum of people who are working and those who are not working. So if we add up number of employed, 230 plus number of unemployed, we will be able to calculate our labor force, which is 250. And then we can plug in this number into our formula to calculate our unemployment rate. So let's use another color. Number of unemployed is 20,000. Labor force is 250. Thousands and thousands will cancel out. This 0 and this 0 will cancel out. So we'll have 2 divided by 25, which is 8%. 2 divided by 25, which is 0.08 times 100, which is 8%. So the correct answer would be A. Okay? So you simply need to calculate labor force. That's all. Next, please make sure that you do these exercises in the exam. They are not difficult at all, so don't lose these marks. They're simple, easy marks to get. So you literally need to learn just a few concepts, not difficult. In the remaining 2 exercises, right, natural rate of unemployment is generally thought of as ratio of frictional to cyclical. No, it's not a ratio, it's a sum. Sum of, yes, the remaining parts, the remaining options will include the sum. Let's have a look at what sum do we need. We have written this down here. So natural unemployment rate is a sum of seasonal, frictional, and structural. So let's have a look what option we can find here. Structural and cyclical, no, it's not cyclical. Cyclical unemployment is not part of natural unemployment rate, which means that we can immediately eliminate B and C as well. And we've eliminated A already, which means that we're only left with D, the sum of frictional and structural. Strictly speaking, it should also include seasonal, but we don't have this option here. And all other options are incorrect. That is why the correct answer here would be D. And final question here, the main cause of cyclical unemployment is, as we know, it's a recession. It's the fact that we produce less than normal output. We produce below our potential, less than usual. So the firms engage in race, gender, or sex discrimination. No, it has nothing to do with discrimination. It has nothing to do with that, because even if this was the case, this would increase unemployment among people of a specific gender, specific color, specific religion, and so on, but it would not affect this cyclical unemployment. Some individuals do not have marketable job skills. If they don't have marketable job skills, again, it's not related to the cycle of the stage of the business cycle. Even if the economy is booming and you don't have enough skills, that's it. You won't be able to find a job. So not B. Level of overall economic activity fluctuates. Yes, that's the cycle. That's the whole idea of the cycle. Workers often voluntarily quit a job to look for a better job. If this is the case, you would be frictionally unemployed. This would be frictional, or job search unemployment. This would be frictional. And if you do not have marketable job skills, this would be structural unemployment, not cyclical. So we are left with C as the only correct answer. And I think that's it. This completes our set of questions for this particular topic. What would you like to ask me about this topic, or maybe any other topic we've covered previously? Have a look at maybe your seminar book and check if you would like to have this opportunity to ask me any questions. And I'll stop the recording now.